Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Changing the Questions, which I'm purposefully avoiding the number 2 because I'm not sure where it will fall in our chronology, but
we'll see.
But the question, we have that determined already. We have that in mind, and the question that we are going to be discussing today is...
authority figures?
Have they overstayed their welcome? So... for as long as, honestly, for as long as a lot of wrestling fans have been alive, which makes us feel old as hell.
Let's give props to Jack Tunney. I mean, not the smartest guy in the
poor
world.
stupid Jack Tunney.
But, Jack Tunney, it was a fun time, and then you got Gorilla Monsoon and Sergeant Slaughter. Okay, you're going there, and then... well, you move on to Shawn Michaels, I think. And
yeah, obviously...
it jumps, and then it goes to Vince McMahon.
Obviously the most important one. The kind of the genesis of the authority figure, really, like, that's really consistently involved in storylines. Obviously Vince McMahon and the Stone Cold era.
You know what, let's mention Eric Bischoff as well, with WCW.
True, he was with the NWO pretty close to the same time.
Yeah.
So the question is that this has been... an ongoing trope in professional wrestling for 20 years, now going on 20 years. Is it time for it to be over? Because right now we have the Authority in WWE, and the Authority comes across as the dumbest, most inept evil boss that's ever lived, because it's a matter of, we hate you, John Cena, you're gonna be in a title match next month. Like, what? Why would you give him a title match? You hate the guy.
Yeah, we want to, we want...
and it's gonna
want this guy to represent the company. It's like, come on, really? It's
gonna be a steel cage match that you've never lost, and it's gonna be against Bray Wyatt, who we've never lost to, or something like that. Like, they always, stack the deck, so horrendously against themselves, despite the fact that there's supposed to be, this evil power that's supposed to be oppressing the other wrestlers. And it just doesn't work. And we'll get back to the Authority, because there's obviously a lot of things to discuss, but I think it is worth mentioning the one shining good example of an evil authority figure that exists in professional wrestling today, and that is Lucha Underground's Dario Cueto. Although who knows if he's going to be around in the second season or not. Dario Cueto, if you watch that whole season, he never did anything that he didn't want to do unless, you threatened him physically, or you gave him some sort of valid reason for him to be like, okay, well, you did this to me and I don't like you, why should I help you at all? Or he would just take people he didn't like and book them against each other to have them hurt themselves. Like, oh, I don't like Sexy Star, so I'm going to book her in a match against Big Rick because he's, 10 times her size and I want her gone. Or, oh, Superfly helped out Sexy Star this week, Luchas de Apuestas match,
or he booked logically, because, right. Come on.
So that is the good example, and to every rule there is an exception, but as a whole, is it really... do people really get behind wrestlers fighting against authority these days at all?
Oh, it's... I guess what's old is new again. But unfortunately, what's old has been going on for close to 20 years now. You go back to Vince McMahon, go back to the McMahon-Helmsley era. It's a rehashed McMahon-Helmsley era. Think about it. It's the same exact people involved. Just one's a little bit old. Both are older.
Well, it's just minus Vince,
shorter
too.
Hair, and it's minus Vince McMahon. It's just a bit old. Even when Bischoff was around, it was a little old, but, Bischoff is Bischoff. He was new blood to the company. And he had the fun segments with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and it went in a certain direction. But overall, it's just been going on for years and years, and it's overused.
Well, here's the thing too, and I don't know if they necessarily have the right people to do that correctly, because the thing that made the heel authority figure, heel general manager, work so well is that you had an everyman that general manager was trying to fight that would prevail against the general manager, but would also be defeated by them at times. So you take a look at Steve Austin, and when he went against Vince McMahon, he hits him with a bedpan or runs him over with a Zamboni or whatever.
Good times.
Once a month or whatever, but then the other times Vince McMahon is just using the numbers game to beat him down and wear him down and fire him and get him arrested and do whatever. And actually there's some adversity that Austin needs to overcome. Whereas you have somebody like the Authority, like who are they feuding with? John Cena? Like what can you do to that guy that is going to look even remotely like he's being held up? Well, Daniel Bryan it worked with because Daniel Bryan actually felt like an underdog. John Cena's not an underdog.
You know what? It still felt stale because it's been this type of storyline's been going on for so long.
Right, well, they dragged that out too long, but it worked.
You know what? I'll give you that. It worked. But trying to rehash it now with Roman Reigns does not work. Roman Reigns is a much bigger guy.
Right.
He doesn't have near the amount of crowd to back him that Daniel Bryan did. I mean, look at the Royal Rumble, where Roman Reigns won it. He eliminated Daniel Bryan.
No, he didn't.
He didn't. Who eliminated him?
Bray, I think.
Bray? Somebody eliminated.
He went out. He went out with very little fanfare.
The point, yeah, exactly. The point being is that Roman Reigns won that, and people revolted against it because it wasn't Daniel Bryan. It just doesn't work the same way. You got a guy like Daniel Bryan, underdog, and you got Roman Reigns, big smasher type guy that can kick ass.
Right, the handsome Prince Roman Reigns. That's the thing, is you have guys who don't come off like Austin came off as this blue collar guy. He was in good shape, but he wasn't, ripped to beyond belief. He wasn't gorgeous. He looked like this dude that you would hang out and drink beer with and all the other things.
It's funny that you mention all this, and I was thinking about the Rattlesnake moniker earlier today, where he gives those promos where he rattles off of the mouth, and he kind of he tenses up, and he keeps talking, and then he strikes, and it's literally like a snake, like a rattlesnake. He strikes, and then he goes and
plus the funny thing is too is that Austin was such, both Austin and The Rock, they were bad guys.
Yeah,
they were bad guys that the crowd turned on their own, and Austin was a thing of the authority figure. Fighting against him worked because Austin was so uncontrollable and unpredictable that Vince McMahon was just like, I can't have you going around stunning our announcers and hitting, Jim Ross with a chair and doing whatever. Like, there has to be some order here. And then Austin was like, nah, and kicked him in the stomach and stunned him. But is Roman Reigns really raising that much hell on your main roster that you can't appreciate him as your champion? I just don't think it makes any sense anymore. Honestly, the only person I think that works with anymore, besides Daniel Bryan as the underdog who's rebelling, and if they want to bring him back or whatever, and they need to bring him back if he's healthy, the only other person that works with at this point is Dean Ambrose. Because Dean Ambrose is friggin' nuts. And if they're just like, oh, well, and honestly, it would work well as a juxtaposition of, oh, well, Roman is this attractive guy. He comes off well in interviews, although we'll say for argument's sake he comes off well in interviews.
His NXT interviews were okay. I'll give him that.
We'll say he'll look good on the Today Show. Oops. That's probably loud. He'll look good on the Today Show. He'll look good on Jimmy Fallon, whereas Dean Ambrose, this crazy guy with a bomber jacket and greasy-ass hair, we don't want him representing our company. And then Dean Ambrose is just like, and he hits Triple H with an ambulance or something. Like that could work.
I think it could work both ways. Ambrose is a heel or Reigns is a heel. I think if you're going to rehash anything, instead of having Sheamus come out and kick Reigns down, just like Orton came out and couple of years ago and pinned Daniel Bryan for the championship, like Sheamus did this past weekend with Roman Reigns. I mean, if you're going to do anything and rehash it, I say rehash what happened. I don't like rehashing, but if you're going to do something, go back further. Do what Vince McMahon did with The Rock at Survivor Series 98. You expected Mankind to come out of that match because he got Vince McMahon behind him, but no, it was a big swerve. And, I'm not behind a ton of swerves, but if you're going to do anything, have a guy like Roman Reigns get disgruntled at the crowd reaction he's been getting, and maybe turn him heel, and maybe go that route, and maybe have Ambrose chase after him, maybe have them have a big feud. Because maybe you'll get Reigns over better that way. Instead of shoving him down people's throats as the ultimate babyface, try something different. It works. I promise you, it's happened before. Will it work every time? I can't guarantee that. But try it.
What you can do, and what I think they should do is, first of all, they should have just left it. They had the perfect out a year ago with the Survivor Series thing where Dolph Ziggler won. Poor Dolph Ziggler, by the way. But that's a subject for another time, although I never want to talk about Dolph Ziggler. But the Authority was disbanded, and okay, fine. Like
I was okay with that.
They need to go back to, like, okay, our Authority is the quote-unquote board of directors, and they only
I was mentioning this last night.
They stay completely off camera. They only make a ruling when something happens, like, oh, Seth Rollins is injured. The board of directors has decided that there's going to be a heavyweight title tournament, and that's it. And, like, they are basically just an NPC now at this point. They are, like, the friggin' laptop GM that they had, like, except not that and never that. Just
come out to be the foil to the big authority figure, because things have happened so often, and with such severity that somebody has to step in.
Plus, the thing
to
is
put them in their place and check them.
Is that
it hasn't happened?
Really, when you have the authority figure around, the belt just loses all of its importance and is effectively just a prop. It's like, okay, well, the Authority's always going to be involved with that title picture, and if you just remove them completely and you just have it go back to being shadowy cabal of people we don't know as your board of directors who are only making decisions when they absolutely need to, then the focus becomes on the title again. And it's like, okay, instead of like, oh, well, who's with the Authority and who's fighting the Authority, it's who has the belt and who's fighting for the belt. And I mean, you could do that with a face GM too, sort of, kind of, technically. I mean, like, basically William Regal is doing that in NXT, where he only shows up when it's something important or there's some sort of kerfuffle that they are trying to sort out, and for the rest of the time, he basically just removes himself from the situation. So, he is, I guess, kind of a face GM, but he is basically neutral. He's just like, okay, well, I need to run this company here. How am I going to do it? Here's how I do it. If you want to do something like that, fine, but honestly, I would be perfectly okay if they just removed everybody completely, had some WrestleMania angle where, Seth Rollins returns and defeats the Authority and they have to explode in a big, pile of confetti or whatever, and then let that be that. Just go back to actually people fighting and caring about the title instead of fighting and caring about the Authority and who's in the Authority and who's not.
And, that's what I liked about Jack Tunney. He would book matches, and that would be okay. And, you let these guys hash it out, and that's it. If you want to go to the Authority route, and you want to have a GM that's corrupt, I mean, you can kind of look at Eric Bischoff, and you want a good one, look at Teddy Long. I mean, tag team meme aside, I guess, or tag team setup aside, those guys were kind of sort of two sides of the same coin. I mean, Bischoff didn't go too crazy. Long didn't go too crazy, but, Bischoff was obviously a heel.
That's true. Even though Bischoff was a prick, he never really interjected himself too much in things.
If he wanted to do something to make it happen, he let it happen in the ring, I guess. If Long wanted something to happen, he would let it happen in the ring. It's the way it's supposed to be. Long, he let it happen fairly. Bischoff, maybe he stacked the deck against the person opposing him. But he didn't get directly involved in
right. He wasn't going around throwing spinning heel kicks at people, and interjecting himself physically in matches,
and making sure that a certain wrestler gets a championship.
So,
it's
kind of summarizing this whole thing. My final verdict all is
scale back on it. I think
let the GM die completely. Go back to having the titles be the main focus of the show, and pull away all the BS and just let it be that. You don't need it. It's stayed out its welcome. Maybe bring it back in 10, 15 years where you go on your 7-year cycle or whatever and do it then. But in the meantime, let's get rid of the Authority figures. Let's just go back to having these people fight over titles instead of over company titles, I guess.
I just think if you're going to do it, try to scale back a bit. I mean, like we said, Dario and Lucha Underground, he's doing fine with it. The way he books, I don't want this cashed in at a random time. I want this, I want to book this match and promote it. It makes sense. Do things that make sense. Don't just kind of throw things at the wall and see if they'll stick. I mean, it's just not smart.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Changing the Questions. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to leave us a comment or give us a review, depending on where you're listening to this, whether it's iTunes or YouTube. Leave us a question if you want to have us discuss something in particular in a future episode. You can do it in all those places, or you can hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Scorcho, SCORCHO. Miner still hasn't found his yet, so maybe we'll get that on a future episode.
We might make a podcast specific.
Yeah, we may do.
Yeah, I got the same.
Yeah, it's contagious. We might do a specific Twitter handle for the show if it goes well and people enjoy these. But until next time, I am going to go eat some pasta, and we'll see all you soon.
Adios.
Bye.
Bye.